I was not here. After more wind and many more miles of lava fields, I finally got back to town. The first person that I recognized in hours was my wife, who was cheering me on from the road below the Kona Brewing Company. It was so good to see her, and she was cheering me on and saying, "Looking good." For a moment, the pain in my back, neck, legs, and buttocks temporarily lessened, and I headed down to T2 to put on my running shoes and start running the marathon. I rolled out of transition and headed up to Hot Corner, where my wife and friends were cheering me on like I was going to win this thing. I actually felt pretty good, and I shook off my bike legs in just a few miles. I took a couple of turns and ran up Ali'i Drive, going past Island Lava Java, which was absolutely packed with cheering fans. The view of the surf crashing across from Lava Java was absolutely awesome, and I felt much gratitude and gave thanks to God for letting me be in Hawaii and do the Ironman. After a few more miles, I saw Sarah Reinhardson running toward me. She was like a rock star out here, complete with her own van with a film crew. Everyone knew her name and went crazy. For those of you who don't know who Sarah is, she was a lead story in the 2004 Ironman DVD. Sarah is a challenged athlete who as a child had a tissue disease and had to have her leg amputated above the knee when she was very young. In 2004, she attempted to be the first above-the-knee amputee finisher of the Hawaii Ironman. If you watch her story on the 2004 DVD, you'd better have some Kleenex handy, because it is a real tearjerker. In the 2004 race, Sarah didn't make the bike time cutoff and was not allowed to continue on. In 2005, she was back in the race with a fitted bike from Trek with the words "Unfinished Business" painted on the frame. When Sarah and I passed for the first time, I knew that she was going to make it this time. She was running strong, and she had a smile on that made everyone around her feel good. Sarah knew she had this one in the bag, so it was time for her to enjoy her journey. I finally caught up with Sarah and made the pass. I really didn't want to pass her because I was having way too much fun being near her and basking in her glory. When the people cheered for Sarah, you just felt good to be near her, and it took your mind off of the pain. It was almost like a contact high. If she could be out there doing this grueling event on one good leg, you'd better not start feeling sorry for yourself. After heading out of town and watching a beautiful sunset over the Pacific, I started out toward the airport and the infamous Energy Lab. At this time of day, the Energy Lab was not viciously hot, which it is famous for when the pros come through. On the way out, I got to see Sarah again. She was pretty hard to miss with the film crew chasing her with mics and spotlights in hand. Now it was really dark out, and I remembered the photo from Triathlete magazine that I cut out and put in my vision book. I was really the guy in the picture now, as I was running up on the other racers who were walking. Now all I wanted to do was get back to town before I got in a wreck with some overzealous fan on a mountain bike. The course now was pitch black, with the exception of the aid stations, which had lights powered by gas generators. All I had to do was keep running to the next set of lights, where I would be greeted by the nicest volunteers in the world, and I would make it home. The mantra now was just keep moving. Just keep moving. I finally made it out of the darkness and reached the outskirts of town and back to civilization. With every step, I could hear the announcer and the cheering crowd get louder and louder. I ran down Palani and through Hot Corner and took a left. Now I was running parallel to where the finish line was, and I was close, but not there yet. My everything ached with every step of that run on the final few miles back to Ali'i Drive. As I got closer, I remembered the advice that a friend of mine gave me when he heard that I got into Kona. He had done the race a few years before, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't race hard down the finishing chute. Take your time and enjoy it. You will never forget it as long as you live. trust me. The last 2 miles felt as long as the previous 24. Where was the turn? I kept thinking. Finally, I saw a police officer blocking traffic, and I knew that was where it was. It is about time, I thought, and I turned right and ran downhill onto Alihi Drive. What was to happen next was one of the most memorable things that has ever happened to me. I was running down Ali Drive, and there were children and adults from the crowd running up to me and high-fiving me. They wanted to share in this incredible moment, and it felt absolutely amazing to have them there. I finally arrived at the entrance to the finishing chute, and I could see the finishing line in sight. I have been to a lot of races, but I have never seen anything like this. People were jammed in the bleachers, screaming and cheering. The finishing chute had people lined up shoulder to shoulder on both sides, screaming and banging noisemakers. There was so much energy here that you probably could have lit up a city with it. It is something you have to experience in person to appreciate. I took my time and ran down the final steps of the chute and crossed over the finish line. I don't have words to describe what that was like. It was almost like you never wanted that moment to be over, even though you spent the entire day wishing it would be. After crossing the finish line, I was given a fresh lei of flowers which smelled amazing, a towel, and my official finisher's medal. A moment later, I was greeted by Robin and friends at the finish line who wanted to help me out in any manner possible. I told them I was all set and that all I wanted was to head up to the hotel room so that I could drink a cold beer and take a hot shower. As I made my way through the crowd of spectators, everyone I passed said "great job" or "congratulations," and all I could do was say thank you. Thank you to all the fans. Thank you to all the volunteers. Thank you to the original 15 racers from 1978. Thank you to my wife and friends for their great love and support. Thank you to the race gods of the Big Island for watching over me. Thank you, Lord, for this amazing experience, which I will always remember with great joy and gratitude. As they say in the Ironman world, anything is possible. I hope this story has made you a believer of the same. Chapter 3: The Vision House. In the spring of 2004, my wife Robin and I watched a story on the Travel Channel on Breckenridge, Colorado. I had written in one of my journals one morning on the beach that one of my goals was a ski vacation in Breckenridge under my places to travel list. A few months later, I was talking to my new friend Doc, whom I met through a real estate course, who had lived in Colorado. I mentioned that I wanted to check out Breckenridge, as I had seen a special on TV. Doc said that he had a timeshare in Breck and that we could use it, as they didn't think they would get out there that year. I went home that evening and told Robin about it. Suddenly, I ran out to the trunk of my car and found the notebook from the beach and showed it to Robin. We are enjoying our ski trip to Breckenridge. The hairs were standing up on my arms. It was working again. We ended up not taking the timeshare, but instead booked the week we wanted before Christmas. We are now having real vacations. We went back out to Breckenridge for vacation again in December of 2006. One morning, on our way out to go snowmobiling, we drove past a subdivision that had beautiful log mansions overlooking the 10-mile range. After snowmobiling, we decided to drive through the subdivision to take a look at the homes. By now, we understood the power of visualization, and I knew I wanted some new material for my vision board and vision book. We drove around the subdivision until we found the house we thought had the best view. We took a picture of the house along with a picture of the view it had. After arriving home, I had a friend of mine print them off in color, and I put the 2 pictures in my vision book. These pictures to me represented my ideal scene, because if we lived in a house like this as our second home, we obviously were very successful. What I would visualize was that I would be having conference calls with our asset managers, and after these meetings, I took the afternoon off to either go skiing or play golf, depending on the season. Many times, if I found myself unable to sleep, this was the visualization I would use to burn into my subconscious mind before falling back to sleep. I probably did this visualization over 500 times. In the summer of 2010, we decided to escape the Florida heat and work remotely from Breckenridge, Colorado. We found a very small furnished cabin to rent off of Craigslist that was only about a mile from the subdivision where we took the pictures in 2006. That summer, we rode our mountain bikes through the subdivision and took more pictures. We really loved that summer out in Colorado, so we decided to look for an annual rental. After going to a yoga class on one Friday afternoon in July, Robin returned home to search the internet for an annual rental. After an hour or so of searching various websites and not finding what she was looking for, I suggested that she check out Craigslist. On the second page of ads, she found a home that sounded very interesting. She started looking at the pictures and she said, "Pete, you have got to see this house." I walked over to where she was working on her computer, and when I looked at the pictures, I realized it was the house in my vision book. The hairs on my arms stood up when I saw the pictures. I was in complete amazement. I asked Robin who the contact person was for the ad. She told me the name, and for some reason I knew I had heard the name before. I did a search on the name in my email, and I found the name connected to an ad off Craigslist for a garage apartment I had inquired about back in March of 2009. I asked the owner if she could send me some pictures of the apartment. She did, and once again the hairs went up on my arms when I looked at a picture taken out of a window, and the view was almost identical to the one I had in my vision book. Now I realized that my vision house had come in not once, but twice. I replied to the email from March 2009, and we called the owner and set up a meeting with her on the following morning to see the home. She gave us the physical address, and we drove by the property a few minutes later because we could not wait to see if it was the same one. 5 minutes later, we knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it was the same house as in my vision book. We couldn't believe what was actually happening. The next morning, we drove back over to meet with the owner and to get a tour of the house. The owner was very nice, and we spent 90 minutes meeting with her over coffee, learning about their beautiful home. I don't know if I can describe the feeling of total awe and amazement that was going through my mind and body as we toured the house. Looking out the windows and seeing the same view I had been seeing in my visualizations was almost overwhelming. We talked with the owner regarding what a strange coincidence it was for us finding each other twice off Craigslist in 2 different years on 2 different ads. We didn't mention the pictures from 2006, the vision board, or the visualizations of doing conference calls with the asset managers, etc. We were worried that she would think we were delusional and had stopped taking our medication or something. We told her that we were interested and asked her to send us an application. We then drove off to go mountain biking in Colorado Springs, and the rest of the day we kept asking ourselves whether or not that had really happened. It was so unbelievable that it was almost too much to comprehend. It proved that creative visualization worked. I mean, really worked. These experiences were manifested, and it had nothing to do with fate or coincidences or whatever. We all have the power to create the life and circumstances in our lives which we desire. I hope that you have found my experiences to be an inspiration to you. Chapter 4: Quantum Physics and Energy. Quantum physics is a very complicated subject, and I honestly cannot say that I am an expert on the topic. Rather than make this a technical discussion on quantum theory, I prefer to simplify it for you. In short, Everything in our universe, when broken down into the smallest building blocks, is one thing, and that is energy. Everything you see, feel, taste, etc. is composed entirely of energy. You may never have thought of this before, but you are also comprised of energy. If you looked at your body through a very powerful microscope, you would see that at the smallest level, you are in fact energy. To take it one step further, your spirit or soul, whichever feels more comfortable to you, is also energy. In this case, it is divine energy. Is it a wave or a particle? Quantum physics is the study of subatomic particles, the smallest building blocks of matter, and how they react. One of the most fascinating things that scientists discovered is that when they measured subatomic particles, depending on the test performed, the result was that the particle could either be a particle or a wave. It was actually a probability amplitude, whereby it was simultaneously both a particle and a wave. If that wasn't strange enough, they then did further experiments and concluded the observer affected the outcome of the experiment just through observation. The truly amazing thing this proved was that the researchers' thoughts were affecting the outcome of the experiments. Thus, thoughts were actually real things, which had the energy to shape the outcome. What this told us was that the entire universe is made of this energy, and that outcomes could be manipulated by our thoughts. At this energy level, we are connected to source energy, which is also the level of creation in the universe. Chapter 5. It is all in your mind. Your thoughts are things, and they are creative in nature. Unfortunately, almost everyone in the world does not realize that they share in the creation of their own life through the thoughts that they think. Many people believe that they live in a predetermined life that is guided by fate and that they are just along for the ride. Nothing could be further from the truth. To make it a little clearer, imagine that you are both the leading character as well as the screenwriter in the movie called Your Life. The script is written by the thoughts you think, which then attract the scenes in your personal movie called Your Life. If you don't presently like the way the scene Your Life is playing, rewrite the script to change the scene. Most screenwriters unfortunately suffer from writer's block when it comes to writing the next scene. As the screenwriter, you can create any movie of your life as long as you believe that you can. GIGO, or GIGO, is an acronym that stands for Garbage In, Garbage Out. Let's bring this into the realm of thought. If you think negative thoughts on an ongoing basis, you are going to see negative outcomes happening in your life. It is not by chance, but instead by natural law. One of the most damaging things that our minds can do if we are not vigilant in watching over our thoughts is to create what I call the downward spiral. In the downward spiral, thoughts of fear generate more and more thoughts of fear, and in your mind, things are getting worse and worse. It is almost a total fear fest that is being choreographed completely in your mind as a result of wrong thoughts. Downward spiral example. An example of this could be a salesperson who is worried about making his or her quota. The salesperson starts to think ideas like this: if I don't make my quota, they are going to fire me and I won't have a job. If I lose my job, then I won't be able to find another one. When I can't find another job, I'm going to lose the house. When I lose the house, I will lose my family and no one will love me anymore. I will then be homeless and die from fill in the blank, all alone. Now the movie escalates into a full-blown tragedy, and the salesperson is feeling as if this reality is actually happening. The stress of these negative thoughts could then translate into lost sales due to reduced effectiveness from insomnia. The problem with these spirals is that they get out of control and will eat you alive with real stress. If these thoughts are not canceled out, they can become a self-fulfilling prophecy through negative outcomes being attracted to your life experience. Whenever your mind starts trying to play the spiral, you immediately need to forcefully say, "Stop!" You are the one who is in control of what you are going to think, and it is not going to be things like that. Period. Remember that nothing good can ever come from thinking negative thoughts.